afternoon. Welcome back to Pouring Through Life by Shannon Pritchard. So today I'm going to do a quick video on how to resin or top coat your projects when it's done. First thing first, I have resin mixed. I use KSRESIN liquid stone. It's my favorite. Everybody has something that works good for them. So latex gloves, number one. I like to do 2 sets of gloves when I resin projects because when I'll show you why, but I put 2 sets on. And then I'm actually going to be doing 4 pieces, so you might get to see a few of my pieces while I'm doing this. I did videos on all of them, and I have been caring for a loved one, so I haven't had any time to do any editing and get much videos done lately. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna resin. This is I believe a 12 by 12 inch cradle wood board canvas. When I paint, before I resin, I will tape the back because it makes life a lot easier when you're done resining. You heat up the tape and it peels right off with the drips. When you do your resin work, you want to make sure where you're drying your resin, it is perfectly level. I have already done that to the side here. When you're working with resin and you're using a fair amount of resin, right now I only have 8 ounces mixed up because I don't tend to mix more than that at once. It will heat up too fast, and so I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to start with, I'm probably going to put 3 ounces on this one. I tend to use probably more than I need to, just because I don't want there to be any bald spots. And if I can get away with doing 1 coat with just using a smidge more resin than it probably needed, I would prefer that. The other thing you want to do when you're prepping your product before you resin it is you want to clean it. I take a baby white and I saturate it with 99% isopropyl alcohol, and I will clean these. This has been curing for a while, probably a month, maybe a smidge longer. I don't usually wait that long, I just haven't had time to do any resining. So I've poured the puddle. Now I'm going to heat it up to get rid of any bubbles that are in here. I don't really need to heat it up, but I just want most of the bubbles to dissipate from this puddle. I also like to make it a little bit more liquidy so that when I start moving it around, it's easier to work with. So I've only put 2 ounces on here. So we're going to start with 2 ounces on this one. And I'm going to go kind of fast. So I poured about 2 ounces on here, and then I'm just going to move the resin around. I'm going to use my hand. Everybody has what works for them. This works for me. I like to do it this way because then I'm touching each surface. I know that I'm getting coverage of the resin. I know that I'm spreading the resin evenly because you can feel it with your hand. So once I get the top surface done, I'm going to go around the edges. I'm going to look at it, make sure there's nothing in my resin, because that happens, like hairs and dust and whatever else is floating in the air will get in your resin. When I do resin work, I have this shelf to my right here. It is completely shrouded in plastic. When I'm done, I will close the lid, and then nobody comes in or near my project zone for at least 24 hours. Well, it depends how excited I am to see what it looks like. I can tell that I need a little bit more resin on the edges. It's really pretty though. Okay, so I'm gonna do a little drizzle along this edge because I can see spots where the resin isn't covering as good. It's just easier if you have more resin. It's kind of like when you're doing a flip cut pour or what have you, and you want to have enough paint so you don't have to destroy your design by overstretching. It's kind of like that, I guess you could look at it. Nice part about resin, it is self-leveling, so it will level itself. What I'm doing right now is I'm spreading the edge around the wood edges here, because this is a cradled wood canvas. The edges will suck up the paint. Even if you gesso, it will still suck up the resin or paint or whatever you have on your canvas. But I also don't want there to be areas where there's bald spots. I don't want there to be thick drips. So I'll sit here and I will do this for a minute. And then I will look at it at an angle. I want to make sure there's no spot that doesn't have any resin on it. I'm also looking at it under the light here to see if there's any hairs, which I can see a couple. So I need to get my tool out, and I have a stick that I use, and I have several of them. So if I see a piece of hair or fluff or what have you on my piece, now is the time to get it before it starts to cure and you ruin your painting. Okay, so I'm gonna get a wet wipe here and I'm gonna go for my heat gun again. I'm just gonna pop any bubbles that I just created while I was spreading out the resin. I don't want it to thin out too much, because then you will have little areas where the resin is super thin and areas where it's thicker. The nice part about this resin is that it is heat resistant. Oh, that's a big old hair. Okay, let's move that. I even have my hair up and I still managed to get hairs in this. So even though I just do a little diggy dig, it'll level itself out. But I just want to make sure it's good and good. So I'm just going to put a little bit more. I would rather have slightly too much resin on a piece than to have to put a second coat. So I tend to put a little bit more. When you add extra resin though, you're going to want to heat that up, because you'll have areas where it's just slightly thick and then you'll actually see little lines from doing that. So let me get my heat gun again. The other reason why I tape the underside, it makes easy cleanup, but I also like the rolled edge. I see a little fluffy flufferson. Just set my heat gun right down in resin too. Hopefully that's it. All right. I see another piece of hair. This drives me nuts, but that's why I have the extra lighting the way that I do, is for this exact reason. So I can look from one side to the other for little pieces of fluff. Okay, that looks good. I'm just going to double check and make sure there's no missing spots, and then I'm going to move it and get on to the next piece. These lights, these fluorescent lights are really helpful when you do resin because they give you a reflection so you can really take a look at your piece critically to catch any mistakes before. Okay, so that needs a little bit of resin. The other thing, when you do a wood canvas, sometimes it'll look like hair, but it's actually just little pieces of wood grain. So I find it helpful when you do use wood canvases to sand them before you paint them. She's gorgeous. Okay, so let me put this one down. Okay, looks good. So I'm gonna take off my one set of my gloves because it is super covered in resin, and I'm gonna get the next piece down before I just rubbed resin all over everything before my resin starts going off. So I'm basically doing 4 pieces, so I'm gonna stack them on each other, and in doing so I've created a place where dust isn't going to drop on that and helps with that a lot. So the next one is this pretty green beauty. I can move these little cuppy thing. Yeah, I'll do that. This one happens to have push pins in it from when I painted it, so I'll leave those on. And then I will move on to this beauty before my resin starts getting hot, which it already is. So this is going to get the rest of this. It's probably way more resin than this needed, but this is already heating up too fast. One of the downfalls to having certain resins and being spring is it's cold and you got to heat your resin up a little bit more than you probably would like to. So yeah, I keep these sticks. As you can tell, they're super full of resin, and the reason I do is it creates less bubbles when you mix with a stick covered in resin. So, and that works for me. Everybody has what works for them, and that's totally okay. Set that aside for now, and I'm going to heat this up to pop a few bubbles, but I'm going to go fast because it is already hot. That's the paper towel, not a wet wipe, by the way. Yeah, this is getting hot. Okay, so this is going to get done a little faster than the last one because this resin is setting up. And if I don't want my painting ruined, I'm gonna, which is what will happen if you don't move fast when the resin is setting up like this. Nice part about resin is you can sand it. So if you're not happy with a project's outcome, you can sand it down and put another coat. My mistake was I didn't separate out the resin into smaller cups. I normally would like to get 3 done with that much resin, but it is what it is. Okay, so I'm gonna pop the bubbles. it's a bald spot. Let go of me. Let go of me. So I'm just gonna look at this and see where there's areas that does not have resin. This one will get a second coat because of the resin setting up. Actually, sometimes it goes good that way too, though. How funny is that? It actually looks good. I don't really see anything. Okay, so I'm not going to put any more heat on this one because it's setting up. But what I am going to do instead is I'm going to get rid of these gloves. I have resin on my arm I need to deal with some alcohol. I use 99% isopropyl alcohol. So I got a little bit on my wrist. You want to deal with that right away. But first and foremost is I'm going to go through this and I'm going to coat this with isopropyl alcohol. It's going to pop any bubbles that are on the surface. I'm going to spray the other one as well, as much as I can. Okay, so that looks good. Yeah, I think it's fine. I'm gonna move my gun here and I'm going to get this sticky stuff out of the way, and I want to check my positioning of the canvases and make sure they're not touching anything. They're gonna dry, and then what I'll do is I'll do a video once it's dry so you can see the end result. So tomorrow I will throw up another little video. Well, I'll combine the two, but I'll tape it when it's done hardening. And then you'll be able to see how it turned out. I just want to make sure that it looks good and I like the positioning of everything, and I want to make sure that you clean your tools so that you don't get resin on your hands. So I always go over my tools and clean them up and make sure there's no resin on them, because you don't want to get a resin burn. It is painful, it's uncomfortable, and it's not really good for you. So I keep baby wipes handy at all times to clean off my tools, and I clean them with every single use so that my tools or my products aren't on everything. I can see a spot on this that I'm not happy about right there. So I'm just going to heat it up a little bit and thin that resin on that spot so it levels there. And I'm just going to quickly go over it and make sure there's no more spots that I'm not happy with. So what I'm going to do with these last two paintings, because I'm going to stack these, is I'm going to multitasking. I'm going to I'm trying to get this drip to run right here so it doesn't have a line. Okay. Sorry about that. So what I'm going to do is I have two layers that are two different heights. I have my next cup. I have these paint sticks. This is going to go here and here. So that'll be the next painting will be on top of here. And then I have a third stacking set that will go in between the two for the fourth painting. So that way I have at least enough area where I can do 4 paintings at once. Alright, you guys, I will see you on the next video, which will be tomorrow, when you get to see how these projects turned out. Hopefully they turn out okay. Uncertain about this lime green one, but it's okay. It'll be fine. We have a show coming up in May, and I'm trying to get some pieces finished before we have the show so I can sell some of them. Because, yeah, it's really a rewarding feeling when you see somebody's face and they love your work. And yeah, I have quite a few repeat customers lately, and it's really, I appreciate it so much, and it is one of the highlights of my day. So, all right, you guys. So there's those, and I hope that helped you in one way or another. And I'll see you on the next video when you see that, when you get to see the final product finished. All right, bye for now. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Pouring Through Life. So the resin pieces are done. This is the next day, and they are just gorgeous. I am super, super happy with how these turned out. The color in this is amazing. I don't know if my camera's picking it up or not. Very good. But I'm super pleased with the overall finish. There's a couple weird spots, but that's just me being hypercritical, which I always am. This one is amazing. It's probably one of my favorites, actually. Really, really love the teal color and the purple lacing, and that copper is insane, but the finish is perfect. Absolutely perfect finish. And this one was my raspberry flash product. Did a video on this, it's been posted, and this is the finalized. Gorgeous. And then the last one from the resin day. I have 5 more I'm doing today, trying to get ready for a show, but I really love the end results when I resin stuff. It's just really quite beautiful. A lot of people don't like working with resin, but you can't deny how amazing these finishes turned out. That green one almost reminds me of like when you're swimming in a lake and you're coming up through the lake water and you can see the sun. Oh, just love it. This kiwi, I think it was kiwi I used, or Bells of Ireland, or malachite, or I don't remember anymore. I'll have to look back on the videos, but really gorgeous. The raspberry flash, amazing. I love how that heavenly satin pigment from KSRESIN created its own like hazy lacing, and I love that. I'm gonna have to play around with that a little bit more, but I'm really happy how it turned out. All right, you guys, if you like the video, please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share. I'd love to hear back from you. I will post my contact information in the description box. If you would love any of the pieces you're seeing today, they are available. And you can email me and we can make it happen. So, all right, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. And it really does mean the world to me. All right, you guys, we'll see you on the next pour. Bye for now.